Hello, everybody. Welcome to Chestnut Checkers. It's my first attempt at podcasting, so bear with me. My webcam is down, so I'm just screen sharing for now. I will have video, hopefully, in the next couple videos. It's August 16th, 2020. The U.S. is amid a pandemic. The streets are full of protesters, and this is where I was led. I tried stand up back in February. I did two open mics. I bombed the first one. I was not prepared at all, though. The second one went well and felt really good. Uh, and then everything shut down. I'm kind of trying to learn how to make music, but I also want to do this. I feel like I need to share some of the stuff that I've noticed and I think about. My goal is to put out a video a week and improve in the quality of the video each week. This video, I want to talk about the importance of unity and how the powers that be use their influence to sow division, divide us at every single aspect of ourselves, all our differences. We have divided ourselves into groups at a time when we need to come together. Like, we're so divided right now that there's no way we could defeat anything that came at us, even a pandemic. Like, the direction this country's headed in cannot be sustained. If you don't see it, I don't know. Call me crazy, but I think if you don't see it, you're the one that's crazy. And notice I call them the powers that be. I don't know all the players. Hopefully, in this journey, we'll discover some of them together. I think Bill Gates is not on our side. I'll go into that a little more, but right now I want to talk about the ways we're divided, because we're divided at every single aspect where people are different. We're divided by nationality, by what country you came from, what country we're born in. We're divided by race, skin color, culture. We're divided by religion. We're divided by our political viewpoints, our wealth or lack thereof. I know there's a better term for that. I'm just drawing a blank on it right now. Our social status, and now we're divided by mask, no mask, woke, not woke, fake woke, by gender, by gender identity, and by sexual preference. Street gangs, like, we're divided, and they want us telling on our neighbors. This is where communities need to come together, or it's not going to turn out good for us. I want to talk about self-censorship. How everybody's afraid to speak up because they don't want to be called crazy or don't want to be judged. But we got to speak our mind and not worry about what others think. Like, the more people spreading this information, the better. If we can if I only wake one person up, I'm happy. I want to read a Reddit post. It was posted by John Apple Cheese, one word. And he gives credit to Jenny Meinhardt. I hope I'm saying that right. But here we go. Nobody forces you to believe this. Do your own research. Freedom of thought. Criticism is welcome, but I won't entertain it. Entertain it. Take it or leave it. Event 201. Let's see. Bill Gates. And then we have ID 2020. Let's see. More Bill Gates. Well, you see where this is going. Coronavirus patent. Let's see what that pulls up. Bill Gates. So far, we're checking out. Let's see. COVID vaccine. I don't see anything about Bill Gates here. Let's. Microchip. There we go. And then we have WHO, NIAID, CDC, and UN funding. All goes back to Gates. Fauci, Birx, Tedros funding, Gates. New economy based on human activity. That's patent 060606, Bill Gates. So Bill Gates is definitely tied to all of this. Hold on, let's do that. Well, anyways, you see, he's got his hands in all this, regardless of whether he is the one trying to push all this, which it really looks like it is. But, alright, I'm going to go on. Hypothesize a simulated global outbreak. Required steps, various phases, overall timeline, and expected outcomes. That's event 201. Create a very contagious but super low mortality rate virus to fit the needed plan. SARS HIV hybrid research strain created at Fort Detrick Class 4 lab from 2008-2013 as part of a research project to find out why coronaviruses spread like wildfire in bats but have an extremely hard time infecting humans, hence the 4 HIV inserts, aka the missing key to infect the human ACE2 receptor. Create a weaponized version of the virus with a much higher mortality rate as a backup plan, ready to be released in Phase 3, but only if needed. SARS, HIV, MERS, weaponized tribrid strain created at Fort Detrick Class 4 lab in 2015. Transport the research strain to a different Class 4 lab, National Microbiology Lab in Winnipeg, Canada, and have it stolen and smuggled out by China on purpose and taken to China's only Class 4 lab, Wuhan Institute of Virology in Wuhan, China. For added plausible deniability and to help cement the wanted backup, public script is something to fall back on if needed. The primary script being its natural backup script being that China created it and released it by accident. Fund all the talking heads, Fauci, Birx, Tedros, and agencies, the WHO, the NIAID, CDC, and UN, that would be involved with pandemic response prior to the planned release of the research strain to control the wanted script throughout the operation. Create and fund the vaccination development rollout plan so it's capable of being rolled out on a global scale. Gates, Decade of Vaccines, Global Vaccine Action Plan, 2010 to 2020. Create and fund the vaccination verification certification protocols, digital ID, to enforce or confirm the vaccination program after the mandatory rollout is enacted. Gates, ID 2020. See, why does he have his hands in vaccination? He's Microsoft guy. Simulate the lockstep hypothesis just prior to the planned research strain release using a real-world exercise as a final war game to determine expected response, timelines, and outcomes. Bill Gates, Event 201, October 2019. Release the research strain at the Wuhan Institute of Virology itself, and then blame its release on a natural scapegoat as a wanted primary script, the Wuhan wet market, November 2019. Downplay the human-to-human transmission for as long as possible to allow the research strain to spread on a global scale before any country can lock down or respond to avoid initial infection. Once a country has seeded infection in place, lock down incoming, outgoing travel, but keep the transmission within the country spreading for as long as possible. Once enough people in a country, region are infected, enact forced quarantines or isolation for that area and expand the lockdown regions slowly over time. Overhype the mortality rate by tying the research strain to deaths that have little to nothing to do with the actual virus to keep the fear and compliance at a maximum. If anyone dies for any reason and is found they have COVID, consider it a COVID death. And if anyone is thought to have maybe had symptoms of COVID, to assume they have COVID and consider it a COVID death. Definitely seems like they've been doing that. Keep the public quarantined for as long as possible to destroy the region's economy, create civil unrest, break down the supply chain, and cause the start of mass food shortages, as well as cause people's immune system to weaken due to lack of interaction with other people. Downplay and attack any potential treatments and continue to echo that only a cure is viable to fight this virus, aka a vaccine. Continue to drag out the quarantine over and over and over again in 2-week intervals, causing more and more people to eventually to stand up and protest, defy them. And maybe enough people weren't standing up, so they had to create this real event, but the way the news media put a spotlight on it to create all this outrage over all throughout the country. But I'll continue. Eventually end the phase 1 quarantine once they get enough public pushback, and publicly state that they still think it's too early to end the isolation, but are going to do it anyways. Once the public go back to normal, wait a few weeks and then continue to overhype the research strain mortality rate and combine it with the increase in deaths due to people dying from standard illnesses at a higher rate than normal due to having highly weakened immune systems for months of being in isolation, to help further pad the mortality rate and hype the upcoming Phase 2 lockdown. Eventually enact Phase 2 quarantines on an even more extreme level and blame the protesters, mostly people who don't trust their government already, for the cause of the larger second wave. Enforce the Phase 2 quarantines at a much more extreme level, increasing the penalty for defiance, replace fines with jail time, deem all travel as non-essential, increase checkpoints, including military assistance, increase tracking, tracing of the population through apps, take over control of food and gas, cause large-scale shortages, so that people can only get access to essential products, services, if they are first given permission. keep the Phase 2 lockdown in place for a much longer period of time than the Phase 1 lockdown, continuing to destroy the global economy will further degrade the supply chain and further amplify the food shortages and alike. Quell any public outrage using extreme actions or force, and make anyone who defies them appear as public enemy number one to those who are willing to submit. After a rather long Phase 2 lockdown, roll out the vaccination program, plus vaccine certification, and make it mandatory for everyone, giving priority access to those that submitted from the start, and have those that are for it attack those that are against it, saying they are a threat and the cause of all the problems. I.e., we can't go back to normal until everyone takes a vaccine. People defying them are hurting our way of life and therefore are the enemy. It's more division. If the majority of people go along with the agenda, then let those people enter the new system, aka the new normal narrative that's been being pushed, while limiting the minority that defy the agenda's ability to work, travel, and live. If the majority of people go against the agenda, then release the weaponized SARS-HIV MERS tribrid strain as Phase 3, a virus with a 30+% mortality rate as a final scare to push the minority to quickly become the majority, and give a final "we told you so" to those that didn't listen. Enact the new economy model, Microsoft Patent 060606, cryptocurrency system using body activity data, which is based on human behavior and willingness to submit. Using food, water, shelter, and other essentials as a weapon of enforcement of the new economic system. Basically, do what we want and get rewarded, or go against what we want and get penalized, i.e., losing access to goods and services we need to survive. Welcome to the New World Order, and I would like to add that if anyone thinks that this isn't true, then check out parts of China. They already have the cryptocurrency system in place in certain areas. And that's the end of the post. A lot of interesting stuff in there. A lot of it has already happened. It seems like that's the direction we're heading. But so the next thing I want to talk about, kind of hard after listening to all that, but it's staying sane and making sure your people are taken care of during these times. I know it can be hard, but we got to keep pushing and we got to keep spreading the word. Try to create some unity among our fellow humans. We all are one. We are all one. I'm going to go over, let's see. So, some ways you can stay sane. You got to unplug from the internet, from the never-ending fear, porn, we call the news cycle. At least a couple days a week. Give yourself a break because it's information overload. I think that's part of the agenda. Keep us so busy on so many different things that nobody can actually come together and do anything about any of them because we're just so scatterbrained with everything going on. Another way is to get out into nature. Ground yourself. I know April, I was just on social media and trying to pay attention to every single thing, and it wasn't good for me. You got to focus on just a couple things at a time. But we do have to try to do something to make some kind of change. Because like I said, the end seems inevitable at this rate that we're going in. it's just not sustainable. But I want to be able to get this video out tonight. I appreciate anybody that took the time to listen. Say something I never thought I'd say. Hit that like and subscribe button, and please share this. And if you have any tips on ways I can improve, please comment. All criticism is welcome at this point. I really don't know what I'm doing, but I got to start somewhere, and I feel like this was a good start. Love you all.